Tell me. Okay, there we go. All right, so it is January the 28th, and we are here inside the Learn with Kelly community. And today we are going to talk about the fear of failure. So, when I polled one of my free groups, which is Learn with Kelly on Facebook, if you're not a member, just join that group, totally free. Not what you're getting in here at all, not as targeted, not the same behind the scenes, not the same lessons, but still, a good place to join. Inside of that group, I decided that I was going to poll them and be like, what holds you back? And it was interesting because I got a lot of responses. Maybe a couple of you were in there, maybe somebody answered that, but it was just fear after fear after fear. All of these fears. And essentially, they all came back to the fear of failure. So, can you put in the chat, what are you afraid of? And I don't mean like spiders. I mean, you can put like spiders, but what are you afraid of? I'm going to put this up here while we're doing that. Okay, so put in the chat, comment if you can. What is it that you are afraid of? Let me see. I forgot to do that before we started. All right, so what are you afraid of? If somebody put it in there, I did not see the bubble pop up. If y'all don't care to maybe share that again, it's weird that it doesn't like stay. But what are you afraid of? Let's ask this question, yes or no. Are you afraid of failure? Do you feel like you are afraid of failure? Anybody? Yes, 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 yes. All right. I think a lot of people are. So I'm going to ask you this question as well, because this is a class. It's not just me telling you and feeding you information, but here's a question that I want you to think about and I want you to answer. And you don't have to put it in the chat if you don't want to, but in your own mind, I want you to answer, how do you define failure? And if you want to put it in the chat, that would be great. But like when I say, are you afraid of failure? What does failure look like to you? What does failure look like to you? So, like, what does that mean? Do you think that failure is, and you guys can just answer yes or no. Do you guys feel like failure is, I took pictures of somebody and they don't like them? Would that be failure? Exactly. Nailed it. Yeah. Could it be, I post that I am going to do these sessions and nobody wants them? Has that thought ever crossed your mind? Have you ever thought, I'm going to tell people that I want to be a photographer? All the time. Yeah. I'm going to tell people that I want to be a photographer. And they're probably going to make fun of me. I'm going to be embarrassed. What if it doesn't work? So my daughter, Katie, she played volleyball and she was always good. She was always good. She never had to work really hard. She was always good. And part of her always knew that if she really gave it her all, if she really went all in, if she really tried and woke up early and put in all the hard work and then wasn't great, what would people think? So she almost used not trying as an excuse. She almost used not trying as a way to not fail. Because the only way in her mind that she could fail is if she really tried and did everything and still wasn't great. And I think that that type of attitude impacts us and affects us our entire life about all kinds of things. Because sometimes we're like, well, I'm good right now, just taking pictures of my kids and that's enough. When deep down, we really want to do more. But if we try, and I mean if we really try, if we come to the trainings and we spend the money and we invest in it and we buy the better camera and we do the things, and then we're still not making, $100,000 as a photographer, then we failed, because then we gave all that we could and it wasn't good enough. For a lot of people, they make up these scenarios of what failure might look like, and therefore they take away that possibility by not actually trying. And today, I'm going to read you a couple of things that I want you to think about. And if it kind of triggers you, if you feel like you want to say something, please put that in the chat. I appreciate all of that. It helps me as I teach. And then at the end, we're going to talk about redefining failure. And so, Aaron, I saw you just popped on. I'm so glad that you're here. The first couple of questions that I just want you to think about, Aaron, are like, what are you afraid of? Are you afraid of failure? And how do you define failure? So I want everybody to kind of have those things in their mind as we're talking here. So the first thing I want to share with you is that every human action has a purpose. So does every inaction. Everything that you choose to do, from coming here this morning and listening to this, there was a purpose in it. There's a reason that you're here. Every person who knew about it, who's paid for the membership and didn't come, there is a purpose. Okay. So that's one thing that I want you to understand as we go into this little study about fear. There is always a why for everything someone does. There's always a why. Okay. So there is always a reason why you bought a membership to a photography community. Okay. There's a why. Why? I want to just join the challenges, which, by the way, don't forget to join the challenge. It expires next week. It is without leaving your house. Take a very creative picture. I've seen 2 in there so far, and those are exciting. There's going to be a weekly challenge. Every week there's going to be a challenge, but there is a why for everything that you do, from joining this to doing your dishes, to buying a camera, to going on a date with your husband. There is always a why. And there's a very interesting fact about human people and their motivation to either do or not do almost everything in their life. And the answer is fear. What I want you to take away from this morning is that fear can either be used for you or against you. Fear can either push you in the right direction or hold you back. And I want you to see right now, how are you using fear in your life? Are you using it? Because here's the thing. Often we think that we need to eliminate fear. No, we don't need to eliminate fear. We need to learn how to use it because it is a part of our life. Doing something new is scary. Doing something challenging is scary. Signing up for something is scary. Okay? Meeting somebody new can be scary. Fear is a part of your life. And so when you begin to make this a power for you, if you begin to use fear for you instead of against you, I want you to see how powerful that can actually be. And we can use fear as our why. Fear can either be used as our why to not do something, or fear can be used as our why to do it. And that is why it is so important that you redefine it. If you are defining fear right now as, what if I try and nobody wants my pictures? What if I take their pictures and they don't like it? So I guess the answer is I just won't take them. What if I decide to be a professional photographer and nobody buys from me? That type of fear holds you in a place where you are stuck. When truly, if you learn to redefine it, you can use it for you instead of against you. Does that make sense? Just put a yes or a no in the comments if you can. Does that make sense? I want you to leave this morning feeling so powerful. You're never going to escape fear. Fear is always going to be with you from the time that you're a little kid all the way until you're hopefully, 98 years old. There is always a why or a goal behind human behavior. There is a purpose or a reason for all human activity. The more conscious and clear you are about choosing your purpose and your goals, the how, so how we take care of this, begins to handle and take care of itself. Your behavior follows your purpose and your goals without conscious purpose. The how becomes conflicted and chaotic. Without you choosing your behavior, without you choosing how are you going to handle this fear, without you choosing how are you going to approach this goal, without you choosing to take control of the fear that you feel, often you become conflicted and chaotic. Can anybody relate to that? Can anybody relate to being like, all of these swirly whirly ideas are coming into your mind, all of these fears, all of these thoughts, all of these what ifs. And instead of being controlled and taking care of that and moving forward, we become conflicted, chaotic, and we stay still. Has that ever happened to you? Yeah, I mean, it's happened to all of us. It is. And thank you so much for answering that. That makes me know that you're listening. I appreciate that so much. So if we don't take control of this fear and these thoughts, they often can control us. And guys, I think everybody on here, we are grown women, right? We are grown women. By the way, I will always make sure that all of my lives are safe to have your kids around. So no fear there. Ironic, no fear there. But it is important that we begin to take control of these things so that we can move forward and make change and do amazing things that we are passionate about. All goals or motives fit within two categories: approach or avoid. Think about this. All of our goals, all of our motivations are going to fit in two categories: approach or avoid. The reason for doing anything is either to approach something that you want to happen or to avoid something you don't want to happen. And guys, you get to decide which way you go. Because most often, the most powerful things in your life, you can either approach them or you can avoid them. And we're here to talk about photography. We're here to talk about your passion for it. We're here to talk about that. And so I want you to see if you've ever dreamed of becoming a photographer, or even just like good enough to take those professional looking pictures of your kids. You can either do one of two things. You can approach that goal, take steps towards doing that, or you can avoid it. Either of them are scary. Both of them are scary. You see, there's going to be fear on both sides. You get to choose which side that you take. Are you going to approach your dreams? That can be scary. We can have a fear there. Or are you going to avoid them? That's a whole different level of scary. As a rule, 80% of people are primarily driven by fear or avoidance, while 20% of people are driven by approach and courage. I mean, let me read that to you one more time. As a rule, 80% of people are primarily driven by fear or avoidance. 80% of people that you are going to meet are simply going to try to avoid fear their entire life. They're going to try to avoid failure their entire life. How can you possibly live a life full of exciting, passionate things and do what you love if you are living in a state of avoidance? And maybe that's some of you. Maybe that's your husband. Maybe that's your best friend. Maybe it's not you, but maybe you know somebody like that. And maybe this can help you help them. Life is too short to live in a place of avoidance, of not wanting to take the next step, whatever that is for you, whatever that might be. But 80% of the people in your life, the people out there right now, they're avoiding it. They're making an excuse. They're making a reason because they're afraid. But the difference between you and them can be that 20% of people are driven by approach and courage. It's very interesting to me how congruent the word fear and courage are. In order to have courage, you have to have had some fear. If you want to be a professional photographer, you have two choices. You can avoid that and live in fear like 80% of the people. Or you can be a part of the 20% and step into courage. You're still afraid. You're just being brave. In all instances, humans act as we do based on the future we see for ourselves. That may be a future we're trying to avoid or a future we're trying to create. I want you to take your power back. Fear is inevitable. Everybody has fear. And you get to either choose to try to avoid that as much as possible or to take courage and step into it. The average person is mostly driven by short-term goals, such as distracting themselves with social media instead of working towards their goals, just getting to the weekend, just paying their bills. By our nature, we cannot help but think of the future, but most people, out of fear, limit their view of the future to a very narrow range. Being driven by fear is a lower state of consciousness than being driven by courage. And what I want you to be left with is the understanding that you get to choose. Are you going to choose to step into avoidance, or are you going to step into courage? You obviously have a thought that you might want to take your photography further. That's why you're here. You didn't avoid showing up, so you've already taken one step towards courage. You're already better than 80%. You're already better. You're already in the 20%. So what's next? Do you stop here or not? So the thought that I want to leave you with today when it comes to the fear of failure is that you started this live with a definition of what failure was. My challenge to you today is to redefine failure. You see, I was an English teacher before I was a photographer, and definitions are actually really, really powerful. How you choose to define something, a situation, a dream, a goal, a circumstance. And so today, your challenge from me is very simple. How do you define failure? Everybody is afraid. So for me, I'm going to choose to look at failure like this. Failure for me would be that my dreams die with me. That is the scariest scenario that I can come up with. The scariest scenario is that I have a dream of being a photography mentor, and I have a dream of teaching people to take a chance on themselves. And I have a dream of teaching classes to people all over the world on how to simplify the idea of being a photographer. And the scariest thing for me is not that I will spend my time and my money and my energy developing a class and developing a community and nobody show up. That's not scary. I don't care about that. What is scary is that I would have that dream, that passion, that calling, and it dies with me because I just wanted to avoid failure. That's terrifying. It's terrifying to me to think that you have a dream, you have a passion inside of you, and you might avoid it because you're afraid that somebody else might not like it, because you're afraid that somebody else might not pick you. Don't avoid that. Here's the thing. If you choose to be a professional photographer, if you choose to step into this passion that you have, guess what? Somebody along the way won't like your pictures. Somebody along the way is going to say something mean. Somebody along the way is going to be disappointed. It's just part of life. But that to me, 100% of the time is better than never trying. And so my challenge to you is to learn to define failure as not trying. Don't let your dreams die with you. Guys, I really hope that this little live was helpful. I hope that it targeted somebody without me knowing. I'm going to save this in our meetup group. I will let you know when the next one is coming. Here is what I am asking from you. If this did strike a chord with you, if this did help you in some way, you don't have to like post it on social media or tag me, even though I would love that. I would love that very, very much. If you like screenshot this right now and it's like spent my morning with Kelly Carrico, that would make me so happy. But even if that is not something you're comfortable with, sharing that you are even taking this chance to show up today, like send me a message. You can send a message here through the community and let me know if this was something that you would like to see more of. I would appreciate that very much. So if this helped you, then I'm a very happy camper this morning. All right, guys, thank you so much for coming. I hope that you have a very wonderful weekend and be checking your inbox and be checking the community for what's coming next. Bye.